Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, we are going to be creating a basic workflow. What is a workflow? A workflow basically consists of connected tools that perform different functions to process data. When you build a workflow, you add and connect tools. You also configure the tools and the workflow properties. I'm going to launch the Ultrix Designer, so I'm going to double click on the icon on my desktop. Once you have Ultrix Designer open, we can start adding tools to the canvas. So from the tool palette, we can see that the tools are color coded and they also have different shapes based on the function they perform. So I'm going to click and drag an input tool into the canvas, and I have to specify the type of data that I'm going to connect to. So in the configuration area here where you have connected file or database, I'm going to click on the drop down. There are different types of data connections. You can connect to files. There are different types of files. So here is a list of supported files that you can connect to. You can also connect to data sources. There are a variety of data sources you can connect to, like Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle database, and so on. So feel free to look through the list. In this video, I'm going to be connecting to a file. So I click on Files, and I'm going to click on the Select File option. When you install Ultrix Designer, it also gives you some sample data, which is where I am looking at the moment. So I'm just going to scroll through to the data I want. It is called tutorial data. So this is the sample data that Ultrix has given us. I'm going to select that and click open. And you can see the view of the data in the configuration window. The next tool I want to add to the canvas is a sort tool. So I'm going to click on the sort tool inside the palette and then drag that into the canvas. I'm going to drag it to the proximity of the first tool so that it establishes a connection. So if I let go, you can see that the connection has been established. So we have the output anchor of the first tool and the input of the second tool. We are going to use the sort tool to prep the data for analysis. The next thing I'm going to do is configure the sort tool. So I've got the sort tool selected in the canvas, and in the configuration window, I'm going to click on the drop down next to name, and then I'm going to select user ID. Under the order column, I'm going to click on the drop down and select descending. Next, I want to be able to see an overview of each column of data and provide insight into the distribution and quality. I'll click on the browse tool in the palette and just drag it to the proximity of the sorting tool and let go so that it establishes a connection. If we take a look at the configuration window, it says no data available. That's because we have not run the workflow. So to run the workflow, you can either click on Ctrl R on your keyboard, or you click on the run button here. So I'm going to click on the run button and that will run the workflow. After running the workflow, you can see we have some data in the configuration window. The data in the configuration window shows the number of records displayed and the number of fields, tells you the size of the file. It also represents each of the user ID, and it sorts the user by their first name. You can click on this OK button here And if you take a look at the results window here, it shows you the results of the workflow. You can scroll through and see all the records in the workflow. In the result window, we have some icons here. We have the icon for help. We have the icon to browse. And then we have the icon for messages. At the moment, the messages are referring to the browse. So if I want to show messages for all the tools, I click on the blank area in the canvas. So that way all the tools are represented. So if we take a look, because I pressed the icon for messages, it gives us an overview of what has occurred since we ran the workflow. So we can see there are no errors, no warnings, and it says we have 2 files. So it gives you some information here. We have the input data tool, and that's the number of records that were read from the data source. It provides the location link to the data source. And then we also have the browse tool, which allows you to browse all the columns in the data provided. And here we have the time it took to run the workflow. If you want to view the data in the result area, you can double click on the link. Say for example, this input data, click on it and it gives you a preview of the records. The data view you can see in the result area is from the data source. So you can see that the actual icon for the tool is selected in the canvas area. So you can always click on any of the link to see more information about the data. For example, I can click on the browse here and that will give me information about the data in each column of the data source. You can save your workflow by clicking on the file button here and click on save. You then browse to a location where you want to save your workflow. The default file name for your workflow is neoworksclub1. Change the default name to a preferred name that you would like to give your workflow, and the workflow is saved as a .yxmd file. I'm going to save my workflow as basic workflow, and I'm going to save it in my desktop. So I click on the save button. So if you take a look at the Alteryx Designer here, you can see the name of the workflow. I just renamed it to basic workflow, and the file extension is .yxmd. So this is where I save the workflow to on my desktop. You can also export your workflow by selecting the options tab here and then clicking on export workflow. When you export your workflow, it saves it with a file extension of .yxzp, which basically is an Alteryx package which contains the YXMD file and any assets such as input datasets or macros associated with your workflow. I'm going to click on the save button here, and you can see here it's exporting my workflow, and it tells you here where it's exported the workflow to. You can also click on the link to show in folder. So this is my exported workflow, which contains both the YXMD file and any assets that is associated with my workflow. In this video, we created a basic workflow. Thank you for watching.